Hi everyone. A couple of years ago I did a video about this 40 to 150 lens, and if all you have right now is the 14 to 42 kit lens, I really recommend getting this lens first because it'll really expand your photography with pretty good range from 40 to 150. But that being said, I do get questions time to time, maybe I should get the 14 to 150 instead, right? Because the 14 to 150 covers the entire range of both the standard kit lens 14 to 42 and this lens at 40 to 150, and it's very convenient not to have to swap lenses in the field, right? So is the 14 to 150 really the one do-it-all lens to replace your 14 to 42, or should you just get this? And that's what I'm going to try and answer today. Now, in terms of pricing, this is $99 all day long. I've seen it for less, like $59 as a refurb, but 99 bucks. The 14 to 150, on the other hand, which is what I'm using right now to film with, used in mint condition around $300 and brand new $450 to $550, depending on what kind of sale they have going on. So it's substantially more expensive, but that might be worth it to you if you don't have to swap lenses. You can just take one lens with you, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a couple of very basic tests. One is I'm just going to do a couple of portraits with the 14 to 150 versus the kit lens and this lens. And then I'm going to do a pseudo landscape shot, just whatever I can do here in my backyard with some trees, and then we'll check for sharpness. And the goal here is really to see if the 14 to 150 can hold up in terms of sharpness and image quality, color, clarity, contrast, all of that against the duo of the 14 to 42 and the 40 to 150. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so I took a couple test shots, and I think I have the exposure right. I have the 14 to 42 kit lens at 40 millimeters, f5.6, 1/1000th of a second. And again, I'm in high-speed sync, but I put the flash power at about 1/8, give or take. But I'm going to hit the shutter button. It's in custom timer, so it'll autofocus after the timer goes off with face detect. So hopefully that'll all work out. All right, let's take a look. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And we got focus. All right, so I'm going to do one more test shot, just in case there was any micro focusing that I can't see with my dying eyes. Like it still might be out of focus. All right, now I got two good test shots. I'm going to do two more with the 40 to 150 lens at 40 millimeters f5.6, all the same settings. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the lens to 100 millimeters and do one more portrait that way, so two more test shots. And I'm going to have to figure out where I need to stand. Wow, okay, so I'm about 5 meters away here, but this looks about right. So perfect, that's a keeper. All right, I'm going to put the 14 to 150 onto the EM5, and we're going to do the same two shots, one at 40 millimeters and then one at 100 millimeters. Alright, so now I'm going to do a pseudo landscape shot and just take a picture of this tree behind me. It's about 50 meters away, so I'm going to do basically 4 different shots and we'll do a comparison. I'm going to do one wide open at 14 millimeters, and then I'll do a semi-telephoto at 40 millimeters, and then we'll do one at 100 millimeters, and then we'll do one at 150 millimeters. So we're going to cover the full range between the two lenses, the 14 to 42 and the 40 to 150, and see how that compares to a single 14 to 150. Actually, I just thought of one more test, and I'm going to put it on the Olympus EM1 Mark III and just do a video autofocus test and compare that to the 14 to 42 kit lens. Alright, I'm using the 14 to 42 kit lens right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of walk back, and I'm at 25 millimeters, and then I'm going to walk forward, and this is about as close as I can get. I guess I can get a little closer. How's that? All right, and then we'll back up, and then let's just walk out of frame. Walk back in the frame. Walk out of frame. And I'm going to walk back in the frame at a different distance. Maybe just about 2 meters back from there. And then walk back in and back to home base. All right, let's try this with the 14 to 150 lens. All right, now I have the 14 to 150 lens on at 25 millimeters, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to just kind of walk backwards. And this is about as far as anybody really should go if they're making a YouTube video or anything. And then just walk back into the frame. And then we'll walk out of frame. Walk into the frame. I'm going to walk out, and then I'm going to step back in about 1 meter or 2 meters back. All right. And then we'll walk forward. And while we have the 14 to 150 on, maybe we can do a product shot. I got all these lenses in my pocket, but if I wanted to talk about these two lenses, I have the 25 millimeter here, f1.8, and the 14 to 42 kit lens. And then in my pocket, I have my 40 to 150 lens. And then let's see how we do here. Yeah, beautiful. It looks like as a video lens, this will work perfectly. Alright, so before we start looking at the images side by side, let me explain why I took the shots the way that I did. I found that on zoom lenses in particular, they can perform very differently throughout their zoom range, but they can also perform differently based on how far away the subject is that you're focusing on. So that's why I did the portrait shots up close with a flash, so you can see how these lenses perform on subjects closer to the camera. And then I did the pseudo landscape shot, so you can see how these lenses perform when you focus on objects further away, again, throughout their zoom ranges. And then, a general rule of thumb is, zoom lenses that have a large range, like the 14 to 150, which is a little over a 10x zoom, generally don't perform as well as shorter zoom ranges, like the 40 to 150, which is a little over only a 3x zoom. So just bear that in mind, but let's go ahead and look at the images and see if that pans out the way I described it. Alright, so the first disclosure is that all of these images will be straight out of camera JPEGs, and the only adjustment I made was for auto white balance. Because I did find the white balance shifted a little bit between images, so I just wanted to balance those out so that wouldn't be a distraction. But other than that, you'll be looking at the images with no editing or processing, just what came out of the camera. Alright, so as you can see, I have the 14 to 150 on the left and the 14 to 42 kit lens on the right, as indicated by all the EXIF data on the top. Another small note is that the 14 to 150 did seem to zoom in a little bit tighter at the same focal lengths, so maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. Not a big deal for this test, but just be aware of that. So let's go ahead and just punch in on the eye, which was the focus point. And I'm zoomed in at 200% here. And as you can see, the 14-150 is not doing as well as the kit lens at 14-42. Like in the eyebrow here, definitely the eyebrow in the kit lens is sharper. Also in the hairline. And then if we go down to, say, the collar, I can see stitching here in the collar, whereas I can't see any stitching at all here on the collar here. And look at the zipper line, definitely much sharper. And that carries all the way down into my shoulder here as well. All right, now looking at the 40-150, you can see they look pretty similar here, but let's go ahead and punch in. And yeah, there's a pretty significant difference here between the two lenses. The 40-150 here on the right is much sharper. I mean, it's not even close. Like, you can see all the pores now in my skin here. Even the stitching, you can not only see the stitching, but you can see the cross stitching in my collar here. And then of course down onto my shoulder and everywhere else. This looks really good here. All right, now zoomed in to 100 millimeters with the 40-150. I still see a little bit of a white balance difference. The 14-150 seems to render just a little bit cooler again. But let's go ahead and punch into the eye. And yeah, now you can see a huge difference between these two. Look at the eyebrow. Definitely a lot more detail. A lot more detail in the hairline here. And then let's go to the collar. Or let's look at the cheek here. Yeah, look at the difference here. You can see a lot more pores and everything on my skin here. And then if we go down to the collar, we can definitely see the stitching now in the collar. Actually, even on the 14-150, I can see a little bit of stitching here. But if you look at the 40-150, you can see the cross stitching going in the other direction as well. So again, it's definitely sharper on the 40-150, even at 100 millimeters. But I'd say that the 14-150 did improve a little bit at 100 millimeters over, say, when we were at 40 millimeters. Just because I can now see the stitching here in my collar at this zoom range, whereas when we were at 40 millimeters, you couldn't see any at all. Now going to the landscape shot, we have the 14-42 kit lens on the right. And let's just go ahead and punch in here. I focused in right about here. And I would say they're about equal here. Let me zoom in to 300%. Instead there. And yeah, I would maybe give the 40-150 a tiny bit of an edge here. Let's check a corner. Yeah, in the corners, pretty much the same. Again, maybe a slight edge to the 14-150. Like here, you know, the kit lens looks a little softer here, a little less contrast than the 14-150. So what I see here basically is when the 14-150 is focusing on something further away, it's actually performing a little better than the 14-42 kit lens, which was opposite of what we saw when we were focusing on things closer. All right, now these are the shots at 40 millimeters, so I could put on all three lenses, and yeah, they look pretty much the same across the board here. Let's go ahead and look a little closer. First up, we have the 14-42 kit lens. Let's go ahead and punch in. And let me line these up best I can. And yeah, clearly the 14-150 is sharper than the kit lens when we're focusing on something a little further away, right? Like in a landscape. So yeah, I think that's pretty clear, right? Let's go out to a corner and see. Yeah, the same thing. And the kit lens, the 14-42 here, you're starting to see some purple fringing and stuff. And maybe down in this corner just for fun. Looks pretty much the same there. But yeah, definitely the kit lens is way softer in this case, the 14 to 42. Let's look at the 40 to 150 now. Wow, look at this. The 14 to 150 is actually performing really well here against the 40 to 150. In fact, I'd say it's even sharper. Let's go up. Yeah, it's a big difference. So that was an interesting find, that when you focus the 14 to 150 on an object further away, the performance improves quite a bit. Look at the 40 to 150, all the purple fringing here. It's much stronger than it is on the 14 to 150. And again, we're at the same f-stop, 5.6. Here in the corners, again, I think the sharpness is roughly the same, but the purple fringing, there's a huge difference between these two. And let's just try up in here. Yeah. Wow. The 14 to 150 is definitely sharper here. All right, now we're at 100 millimeters, and if we look closer, these are pretty much the same. Let me back off a little bit. I would say that the 40 to 150 on the right has caught up. It might be just a hair softer, but not enough that I would pick one lens over the other at this particular focal length. It's really close. Let's check the purple fringing and stuff. Yeah, it looks like the purple fringing has all gone away as well. But the 14 to 150 here on the left is a little bit softer in the corners. Let's go all the way out to the corner. Yeah, look at that. At 100 millimeters, we now have more purple fringing on the 14 to 150, and the lens is softer in the corners. But here, closer to the center, I think the 14 to 150 is doing a little bit better. Interesting. Let's go down to this corner. Yeah, even in this corner, I would say the 14 to 150 is sharper. And then down in this corner, about the same. The 40 to 150, maybe just a hair sharper. So yeah, it's a little bit uneven performance here at 100 millimeters. I think between the two lenses, I would pick the 40 to 150 over the 14 to 150. But honestly, the differences are so small, I wouldn't have a problem with either lens at 100 millimeters. All right, now the last shot here is both lenses at 150 millimeters. And let's go ahead and just punch in on the main focus point. And it looks like the 14 to 150 is sharper. Again, a little better contrast anyway, if not sharper. Just a hair more contrast. Something that, you know, you could adjust for in post-processing. So I think that the 14 to 150 here on the left is not necessarily sharper, but definitely there's more contrast here than the 40 to 150 kit lens when we're zoomed all the way out. Let's see the purple fringing and stuff. Yeah, the 40 to 150 has a little more purple fringing, you know, and orange fringing here, it looks like, in the corners anyway, than the 14 to 150. And then let's look at this corner here. Yeah, more purple fringe, or this is kind of green fringing now over here on the 40 to 150. And the 14 to 150 looks sharper here in the corner. Definitely, just a hair. So let me summarize the results very quickly, and I put together a little chart here where I ranked the lenses first place, second place, and third place. And what's really interesting is you can see that the portraits where you're focusing on items or subjects that are very close to the camera, 3 meters, 6 meters, maybe 10 meters, that the 14 to 150 really didn't perform very well at all compared to the kit lenses. Sometimes by a huge margin, particularly like at the 40 and 100 millimeter versus the 40 to 150 lens. That lens just really blew the other two lenses out of the water, right? But what's really interesting is when you start focusing on subjects that are further away, 50, 60 meters away in this case, the 14 to 150 outperformed the other two lenses. And even, I would say, at 40 millimeters, it significantly outperformed the other two lenses. And even at 150 millimeters, it was just a hair better, I think, than the 40 to 150. Now, there were some inconsistencies in the sharpness across the lens, corner to corner. I think the 40 to 150 lens did a better job. But that's due to, I think, what I was saying very early in the video about super zoom lenses that have huge ranges generally don't perform as well as, you know, zooms that have a little tighter range. Now comes a question, do you get the 14 to 150 or not, right? And if someone asked me my advice, I would say, if you already have the other two lenses, don't spend $300 to $500 and buy the 14 to 150. Your money's better spent getting another prime lens, like a 17 millimeter or 25 or whatever. But if you don't have the 40 to 150 kit lens yet, then it becomes a little tougher decision. You know, because having an all-in-one zoom, so you don't have to swap lenses in the field, you only have to carry the one lens with the camera, has a lot of benefit in of itself. It's also weather sealed and it's no bigger than the 40 to 150, so there's a lot of advantages there that if those things are important to you, then yeah, get the 14 to 150. It's going to be a great lens, and I use it all the time. But ultimately, I'd have to say your money is better spent getting the 40 to 150 kit lens for $99 and saving the difference to buy a prime lens. And I think that's the direction you should go, unless, like I said, the weather sealing and having an all-in-one is more important. Now, I do have affiliate links down below for these lenses, and I am an Amazon associate, so I'll earn a small fee for any qualified purchases, but they do help out the channel, and I really appreciate it. Now, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below, but either way, hopefully we'll see you again soon.